Hello, my name is Saib and welcome to another episode of this Canvas game development series. And today we're just going to talk about texts and how exactly we can draw them in our Canvas area. So simply this can be done by using either one of the two methods, in which is the fill text or just the stroke text. So simply if I just call the fill text and the stroke after this one to actually see the difference between both of them. So this fill text and the stroke one takes three arguments. The first one is the text itself, and the x and y coordinates just for the location of our text in the canvas, either horizontally or vertically for the y. So simply let's say that I want to write my name on the canvas area, so I can simply write 250 and 250. So that's nearly in the middle of our canvas, like this one. This is a filled text. If I just call the stroke text to stroke text, so I can just say canvas in here. Let's stay at the same level for the x coordinate, and then say 50 so that it's up this way. Okay, so as we can see, by default our two texts will be sans serif and with a font size of 10 pixels. So we can change that simply by calling the font method and specifying the size and the font family, and if we want it to be bold or italic, and all of these styling that can be applied to the text. So simply if I just call the font and then between just quotation marks or just one thing, so I can just call, now let's say that I want this to be italic, and let's say 50 pixels so that we can actually see those texts, and let's say Arial, that's a font family font. Now we can see that we have a 50 pixels in for the size, for the font size, and the family font family of Arial for that one, and it's italic. We can just change this to bold. We can play with the font method, and we can add either so much more values than those. We can just go to MD and Canvas font to actually see the guide for that one, to the context, and we can go to font, and we can actually see all of the other values that we can insert in this font method simply. Yeah, okay. Another thing in which we might be useful for us is the text alignment. This is simply the alignment of the text, in which if we just called the text align and we just said that we want to be this one in the center, for instance, we can have it in the center. If we want this one to be on the left, we can just say left. If we want this to be right, we can have this right. By default, it's gonna has the start value, in which is on the left. We can change this one to be to the end. This is actually not something that is very different from the from left and right. It's exactly the same, but it's different for those who actually read from the right to the left. So simply I advise you to just use left and right, and just don't get too involved in start and end. So yeah, let's just keep this in the center. I want to change that one. Okay, so now it's centered. Another thing that we're going to go over is the direction in which the text, just the text direction, in which is simply can go from left to right or just right to left. So if I change this one to be direction to be right to left, that way we're going to see that nothing exactly changed. But if you looked at the side, if I add exclamation mark, you can see that this one is going to be drawn from the right to the left, while in the normal way, in which is the left to right, we can see that the exclamation mark goes after the word. So yeah, simply that's it. You can just inherit the browser's default, in which is left to right. This is going to inherit the text direction from the browser itself. So yeah. Lastly, we have a baseline, the text baseline, in which is something that you might not found useful, but sometimes in some situations you can actually change this, in which is the baseline alignment. The simplest way to actually understand this is by looking at this image on the screen. So you can see the alignment of the texts. Either we have top or alphabetic, in which is the default value for the baseline alignment. So we can just call context text baseline. So by default this is alphabetic. We can just write this one to be top or simply bottom. So yeah, or by default, in which is the alphabetic, in which is alphabetic, like that. This is the default value for the baseline. So yeah, I think that's everything you need to know about text. Just one last thing, we have another method in which is the measure text, to actually measure our texts, the width or just the how tall our text is. This is simply done by calling the measure text method. So let's say that I want to have, let's give it a variable for this one and just call it the text measure, this one, and let's call the 2D context and call the measure text. Now we have to pass the text in this measure text. So simply if I want to know the how wide or how tall our text is, simply by calling this one, I can just insert this between, since this is actually a string. So yeah, now let's just console log that one to actually see the how wide and how tall our text is. So simply yeah, okay, so now if we just go to inspect or simply to Ctrl+Shift+I, just like that, go to the console, or just by inspecting and going to the console. Now if we just refresh that one to actually see the width or our text measure, we can see that this is width, this is how wide and how tall our text is, and which is the sa'ib in pixels. So yeah, simply that's everything you need to know about using texts in Canvas. Yeah, and for more information you can refer to MDN. I'm gonna leave a link in the description to actually look in details for those methods and just understand more about them. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.